All right, hello everybody. Here we are back again for the final lesson in this series. Is it number 4 or number 5? I can't remember now. But anyways, I'll do a little recap like we did last week about last week's lesson, and then we'll move forward into this week's final get across the fretboard with every note available, knowing which ones to play, to make a resolution and which ones are stepping stone notes. Let's get into it. So, what you see here first, a couple of first of some excuses here. I've got a camera set up here, but it's kind of it's kind of a, if the wind blows, it'll start shaking. So, forgive the moving camera. But what we did last week was we exposed a cool thing about the pentatonic scale. Well, actually, for the whole lessons, we discovered that this is the major root, this is the minor root, and because of that, since there are only major modes and minor modes, that this works to cover every mode, 3 and 3, which makes it easy to learn. 3 minor, 3 major. There's more stuff that makes it easy to learn, and that goes along with a chart like this. You start off, writing these charts down. If you lose the paper, write it out again. See if you can, later on when you're driving in your car or somewhere else, you see if you can just remember this stuff straight out in your memory. Then you've got it forever. Your minor modes, Dorian, Aeolian, and Phrygian. Later when we learn the theory, we'll learn how those plug into the scale and where they are located. But we don't need to know that right now, just to make this fun music happen and understand our guitar first. So, because that's where the music happens, right? So, 3 minor modes, they have a name, and our chart here is our natural modes are in the center. Natural, neutral. You can even call this a mood order, even though it's modes. These are like, what are they? They're moods. They're 3 happy moods and 3 sad moods. How can you make a variation on happy and sad? Well, you can have lighter than sad. You can have just an average sad sounding scale, and you can have a more darker sounding, something with a little bit of a darker edge to it, you could say. So that explains the rows here. And so the 3, just write down in your notes, lighter, neutral, and darker. And that's all you have to remember, aside from the 3 names, are the order that they go in, is what I'm trying to say here. So Dorian, lighter, Aeolian, Phrygian, darker. The same with this, use the same order for the major modes, the happier modes. The Lydian, lighter, Ionian, happy birthday, Mary had a little lamb, all your normal happy stuff, and many just normal average pop songs. And then Mixolydian, you can think of maybe a little bit more of a hoedown, more of a jamboree, more of a, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways you personally could describe this. It's got a little bit of a mixed up sound than Ionian. So, and Lydian, like lighter Lydian kind of. So, later on, you can see how they plug into the scale, but we're not going to go over that right now. No need for that. So, knowing that, what I'm getting at here is that a really neat thing happens, and it's the geometry that happens here that makes this easy to, we're using the geometry to make this easy to memorize. So the geometry here is that if one scale tackles both major and minor, then we only have 3 scales to work on. This will cover 1 major and 1 minor, 1 major and 1 minor, 1 major and 1 minor. And it's so cool because it lines up the way you think it should. The lighter, major and minor, Dorian and Lydian. The neutral, major and minor, Aeolian and Ionian. And the darker, major and minor, Phrygian and Mixolydian. Reinforcing in your mind the emotional content of these. It's just really neat how the emotions and the geometry all line up and do something unique. And there's now today I'm going to show you some even more fascinating things that will help you play this across the fretboard. What we have right now, last week we went over the gut notes. These blue notes are the 2 notes that you add to the 5 notes, because 5 plus 2 equals 7. 7 is all the notes of the major scale. If you had all 12 notes, it would be the, what do they call that? Chromatic scale, right? Every note available, which is not what you want. We want the, we'll talk about the major scale here. So these are the 2 notes that plug in to make the scales fully major compatible. And the difference is they give you the modal flavors, but right now they're just standalone scales. And I could even, let me find, missing a correct that little missing note on Dorian here. That should have a pink square right there. Alright, so you have standalone scales. Cool. Good for some initial jamming, but they'll get boring because you're not going across the fretboard. But the greatest thing is that there is a secret here built within that you're looking right at, that's going to help you be in this square and be able to navigate to this and then navigate to that, all like nothing. You could go sideways from one to another. You could go diagonal. You can go up and down 2 strings using that pentatonic trick that we showed you the other day. All of that stuff and more. So let's get into it. So that's the recap, and yeah, let's get into this. I'm going to start with the, I have two completely different things to show you that totally fascinate me about populating the fretboard with every note available to you and every note that's not available, or that you would not want to play unless you were specifically using that note for a specific amount of tension, which you can learn a lot later. Probably you're gonna have to jam in the good section first. Okay, anyways, so I'm debating which one to show you first. Let's show you the squares. Well, no, I'm going to show you the pentatonic method. First of all, I'm going to plug this scale in, and this scale into the fretboard. And if I do that, you have all the notes. These are it right here. There's no other notes of the major scale. They're all right here. Cool, right? Let's see if that's true. Now, one thing that we'll see coming right up here is that there are two of these pentatonic shapes share a square at the bottom. And they indeed share that. This is the exact same square, meaning these two overlap, and this guy is out on his own. He's a half step away from the Dorian on one side, and half step away from the, it's actually half step away. The Phrygian is on this side, Dorian is on this side, and they're only a half step away if you consider this note to the start of the other scale. But let's show you instead of talking about it. So I drew before the lesson here, so we didn't have to waste any time, 2 scale charts so we can see what we mean. Now, all I'm going to do is, I guess, we'll use the C major scale. I guess that's what makes it easy. And I told you we would use the, just using the pentatonic scales, those 3 pentatonic scales, do you get every note available? Well, let's start with that square. This will help us in the next teaching here. We're going to mount our square of notes right here. And we know that because our square in C major, this is always the 1 of the major scale, and that never changes. We'll go over that in a second. So if you don't believe it, we'll definitely nail that in a second. But B, C, E, F, okay, and that would be the notes, the B, C, E, F. As you can see, open string B, 1st fret C, so the 12th fret also B, and C, E, and F. Well, we could even just mirror that here for giggles and shittles. B, C, E, F. Okay, so we've got that one, and we said that they share both Dorian. So here is our pentatonic shape. All right. All we need is a what? A wall right here. I am the walrus. Cuckoo, cuckoo. And we get some sloppy lines drawn there, just to delineate our pentatonic scale. Now, as is above, so is below. The E strings are always the same, so we got to add that note in right here. And we've got our first pentatonic shape. Let's just denote that with some simple dots here, so it'll be a little bit more clear. Our pentatonic shape with the gut notes built in. Whoa, there goes the camera mount. Oh. Alright, reset here. Come on. And speaking of gut notes, you said, Mark, didn't you say there were other gut notes here? Yep. Indeed. Alright. So, that Phrygian scale then, if that uses the same square, then that should be basically right here. Let's use, that should be then 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4. And you can see there's some overlapping notes there. But that's nothing to worry about, or even really to have to think about. So, just by populating those two, we've got almost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frets of notes. We almost need 5 more frets to get to our major scale. Now let's populate the Phrygian. We know has another. They all have 2 squares in them, so we know that we got the 2 squares in our blue Dorian. In our pink Phrygian here, we need 1 here, and we need 1 up at the corner here. Let's check if that's right. Let's see if we were right there. Notes, please. Oh, right here in the beginning. Yep. We had our, you know what? I even screwed that up a bit. I never drew the, oh. Yeah, look at that. You guys could have caught me on that. This is wrong. So, I forgot that in the other lesson we were not using the top row just for clarity. So this is not a note. And I can't erase it, so disregard what I said 5 minutes ago about that being a note. And then right here there would be the top, the E string here. Okay, so just in case that didn't make sense when you came back to look at your notes, there's the top string, then the square, then and that. Let's check if that's what we got here. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Come on now. Here we go. All right. So, we've got the square down there and the square here. I'm just going to use the dull gray to finish off that, so there's no confusion there. So you can see the basic of the pentatonic in pink and the basic of the pentatonic in blue overlapping each other. So that's kind of the neat thing about this Phrygian and Dorian relationship. It's basically one huge scale, easier to memorize. At least it was easier for me, especially when we see the other way of looking at this in our next how we populate the fretboard in another way. So all we need is to put that Aeolian in. Where does that go? Like I said, it's a half step away from this, and if all is correct, we should be mirroring the 5th fret here. with this fret. And so just to see here on a clear scale, the second dot in is the 5th fret. Second dot in is the, 15th, 17th fret. But it's the same thing. That's the A note. That's E, F, G, A. E, F, G, A. So we're just dealing with an octave apart. So let's use the bottom here just to get... So all we need is an octave of notes. Then everything repeats. It's all the same thing. So I got a chord here. It's about to be in the way. Okay. So starting here at the A, all I need is love. Let's draw our pentatonic in here. We got our 1-4, our 1-3, 1-3, 1-3. Okay, now let's give that a color code so we can kind of see it. We got green here making up our Kermit the Frog Aeolian scale. You can see it kind of buttons right up with that scale. We need to add in our gut notes, but before we do that, let's add in our pink scale, the our Phrygian scale, right where that exists, just so we can see that we have got the complete fretboard filled out. No other notes to fill out other than the pentatonic with the gut notes. So we've got that one and that one and that one creating our square, and that's the magic square that's going to come up in just a few minutes in the next lesson there on our next fretboard diagram. So let's populate the Aeolian. Let's take a look at our notes here. What was Aeolian? Oh yeah, Aeolian was that the kind of balanced, had that balanced symmetry where instead of having a box on the right or a box on the left, it has a split box. It has half the box on the left and the bottom half of the box on the right. Okay, and instead of having a box on one side or the other, on the bottom left or the top right, it has a half box on the bottom and a half box on this side. It uses both sides with a half box. No big deal, right? We can handle that. It's just because that's interesting and kind of just weird how that geometry would play out like that. That made it so memorable. That's what made this, easy to memorize. That's really what I was looking for. Is an easy way to memorize this. I need to have this stuff easily accessible in my mind when I'm busy listening to music and trying to play the notes that I'm hearing in my head on my fretboard. My mind is prioritizing all that information. I have no more resources left to go, oh, here's the Mixolydian pattern my teacher taught me. Oh, now I'm in this one of 7 shapes. Now I'm in the other one of 7 shapes. I don't have the resources to know 7 shapes, but 3 shapes with interesting geometry. Now we're talking. Okay, so let me even elucidate the open strings there. So we got our pink Phrygian, yellow moons, orange stars, green clovers, our green Aeolian, and our blue Dorian. And just to plug those gut notes in here, we'd have basically B, C, E, F, B, C. Now we've got to populate the top section. We've already got this one. And this one, basically we've got BC here. Here's something that's going to come up in a few minutes. As is above, or as is below, so is above. Or as is above, so is below. So we can just simply copy BC up here. And we always know if there's a BC or a 7-1, because that's the last note in the scale is B, heading to C, the first note. So we have 7-1. and then 3 and 4, B, C, E, F. And there's our square of notes up here. So pretty awesome, right? So one thing that goes a little bit counterintuitive to what we just spoke about with the Aeolian scale having a balance of half a square here and half a square here. Well, if you do have half a square is always connected to a bigger square unless it's basically off the edge of the fretboard. Like here, B, C, we can't have an EF because we don't have another string there. And so, same like right here, you have the EF, B, C, D, E, F, and you don't have the BC here because, but in theory, if you had a B string or the lower string on your guitar, that square would be there. But anyways, all that being said, all we did was add in those 3 pentatonic scales, and you have every available note in the major scale right there. Every possible one. On the, if you shade these other notes in, the craziest thing is that becomes a pentatonic scale. But more than we need to think about today. But it's the same thing that the black keys on the piano are a pentatonic scale, and the white keys are the key of C. So the same thing is showing up here. But anyways, those are the notes that you would start studying Jerry Garcia's style or getting into some jazz and enclosing notes or targeting home notes. You might begin someday to use these super spices. Those are the spiciest notes you can get because they're going to sound, as an amateur, they're going to sound wrong. And what makes them sound right is using them with the rhythm. But this is getting really deep. I just wanted to let you know that there is, there's never a no man's land. Every place has an explanation. And we just basically explained the entire fretboard. You would basically repeat the green Aeolian scale here, and that's all the notes there are. So, that being said, what's another way? Is there an even simpler way to visualize the fretboard? And I'm going to show you one more way here. There is one more way that's kind of a deeper secret lesson. I've given it out in one of my live lessons, but that's something for another day. Let's try to get this on camera here. We're going to have to move this forward a bit. Alright, that'll do. I think. Okay, so let's concentrate. So, we did a lot of talking about when we populated the pentatonic scales. Basically, all the 2 notes created a square everywhere. So what's the deal with this square? Well, this square is a magic square. I'm going to draw it right here real quick. There are some dynamics and some static elements to this scale. I don't think I can cover all of them right now, but here's what it is. All you really need to do to know your fretboard is to know the very core shape. You can't, here's the secret. When I'm done showing you this shape, you can't be in any other shape. And this is so important to lock your brain down. Your brain thinks that there's all these different places you can be on the fretboard, and there are none. You can only be within this shape I'm going to show you. This shape geometrically repeats throughout the fretboard, and if you put your hand anywhere on any string and fret any note, you are somewhere within this pattern. Guaranteed, period. There is no other way. There's no other pattern here. So, unless you're, say, in between, you could consider yourself halfway in between 2 of these patterns if you consider 2 strings. But, anyways, it's this square, right? Now, how many notes is this square? 4 notes, right? How many notes are in the major scale? 7. So you're only left, after you know 4 notes, this is a cluster of notes that repeats itself all over the fretboard. All you need to know are the other 3 notes. Now you should say right there, well, Mark, cool, but geometrically speaking, you have 4 notes there. What's the deal? Well, remember, when you tune your guitar, you tune at the 5th fret, and the 5th fret is always the same as the open string. So if this was the open D, you would have your 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret on the A string is D. So let's check that out. A, B, B is always followed in a half step by C, A, B, C, D. So keep the geometry easy, just remember there's a repeat right here and right here, and that helps you link yourself up. If your mind is going in this direction, which is not usual because it's the exact same notes, maybe a slightly different timbre because it's a different part of your guitar, but there's no octave change, it's the same notes, it's not as common to do. But anyways, that was getting, a little deep. If that started losing you, don't worry about it. Follow from here. A, B, C, D. Yeah, there's a repeat D right there. E, F. And what do you know? E, F happens to be the notes that in the C major scale that are together with no sharps or no flats. That's why we use the C major scale here, and also because it starts conveniently on A, the 6th note right there. Now, this is what we began talking about, is what will stay the same and what will change here. This is what you're looking at what will change and what will stay the same all at once. These notes will change because you can slide this pattern all the way up and down your guitar. For example, when I said